Edward's fingers danced across the holographic display, his brow furrowed in concentration. The refueling sequence had failed for the third time in an hour, and the Meridian's AI kept spitting out the same cryptic error. Fuel integration rejected. Foreign mass detected. That's impossible, he muttered, running a diagnostic sweep of the ship's antimatter reservoir. The scanning results showed nominal readings pressure stable, magnetic containment fields functioning at 99.7% efficiency, temperature within acceptable parameters. Everything looked perfect on paper, yet the fuel injectors refused to accept even a single gram of the hydrogen isotope, mixture waiting in the station's transfer lines. Emma floated through the access hatch, her engineering toolkit magnetically secured to her hip. Still locked out? She asked, pulling herself into the cramped cockpit beside him. Completely. The system's acting like there's physical obstruction in the reservoir, but every sensor says it's clear. Edward pushed back from the console, frustration evident in the tension of his shoulders. We've got maybe 6 hours of reserve fuel left. If we can't refuel here at Ganymede Station, we'll never make it to the Europa mining colonies. Emma studied the data streaming across the display. As the Meridian's chief engineer, she'd serviced the antimatter propulsion system dozens of times. The ship was a modified cargo hauler 30 years old, but reliable, with a fusion drive for standard burns and a small antimatter reservoir for emergency acceleration. The reservoir itself was a marvel of engineering, a spherical chamber lined with electromagnetic coils that suspended the volatile fuel in a perfect magnetic bottle, never allowing it to touch the physical walls. "Let me run a gravimetric scan," she said, pulling up a secondary interface. "If there's something the standard sensors aren't catching, maybe we can detect it by mass displacement." Edward nodded, watching as she initiated the scan. The gravimetric array was designed to map microscopic variations in local space-time, useful for detecting dense objects or navigating near neutron stars. Within seconds, the results populated on screen. Emma's eyes widened. There, look at Sector 7, lower hemisphere of the reservoir. A three-dimensional wireframe of the fuel chamber rotated before them. In the lower quadrant, a small anomaly appeared, a mass roughly the size of a human fist, suspended in the magnetic field alongside the antimatter fuel. How did that get in there? Edward leaned closer, his mind racing through possibilities. The reservoir's been sealed for 3 months. We haven't docked anywhere except regulated stations. Whatever it is, it's got enough mass to disrupt the magnetic field topology, Emma explained, her fingers flying across the haptic controls. The fuel injectors are safety locked because they're detecting field asymmetry. The system thinks the containment is compromised. Edward felt a cold dread settling in his stomach. If that thing shifts and breaks containment, we'd have about 2 microseconds before the antimatter annihilates with the chamber walls. Emma finished grimly. The explosion would vaporize everything within a kilometer radius. They stared at each other in the dim cockpit lighting. Around them, Ganymede Station rotated slowly beyond the viewport, its ring habitat glittering with thousands of windows. Tens of thousands of people lived and worked there, completely unaware of the bomb floating in their midst. "We need to see what we're dealing with," Edward said finally. "Can you get a visual?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. "I can deploy a fiber optic probe through the maintenance port. It'll take some precision maneuvering. I'll need to thread it past the containment coils without disrupting the field." "Do it." For the next 20 minutes, Emma worked with surgical precision, remotely piloting a hair-thin probe through the reservoir's maintenance access. The probe's camera transmitted grainy images back to the main display. When it finally positioned itself near the anomalous mass, both pilots drew sharp breaths. The object was organic dot. It appeared to be some kind of egg or cocoon, roughly ovoid in shape, with a dark, chitinous shell that seemed to absorb light. Delicate crystalline filaments extended from its surface. each one terminating in what looked like a miniature electromagnetic coil. The filaments were actively manipulating the reservoir's magnetic field, creating a stable pocket that kept the object suspended and protected from the antimatter swirling around it. "It's technology," Emma whispered. "Biological technology, but definitely engineered." Edward's hands were trembling as he recorded every detail. "Those filaments, they're mimicking the reservoir's containment architecture. Whatever this thing is, it understands quantum-level electromagnetic manipulation. And it got here deliberately," Emma added, zooming in on the connection points where the filaments interfaced with the ship's systems. "Look at those attachment nodes. They're designed to integrate with our specific reservoir model. This wasn't an accident or contamination. Someone or something planted this." The implications hung heavy between them. The Meridian had carried cargo from 15 different ports over the past 3 months: medical supplies, mining equipment, terraforming modules. Any one of those shipments could have been a cover for introducing this object into their ship. "The question is why," Edward said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why hide something in an antimatter reservoir? Why our ship?" Emma studied the pulsing crystalline filaments, watching as they made microscopic adjustments to the magnetic field. "Maybe it's not about us. Maybe we're just transport." She pulled up their flight manifest. "Edward, look at our next scheduled stop after Europa." His face went pale. "The Titan Xenobiology Institute." They stared at each other, understanding dawning simultaneously. The institute was humanity's premier research facility for studying potentially hostile alien artifacts recovered from the outer system. It was also one of the most secure locations in the solar system, with scanning protocols that could detect a single anomalous atom. "Unless," Emma said slowly, "that atom was shielded inside an antimatter reservoir. Who scans an active antimatter containment chamber? You'd have to shut down the entire propulsion system, drain the fuel, which no ship would do unless absolutely necessary," Edward finished. He looked at the pulsing egg on their display, its alien technology humming with unknown purpose. Someone smuggling this thing to Titan. Or maybe from Titan. Emma's expression hardened. "We need to report this, now." Edward's hand moved toward the communication console, then froze. On the display, the egg had begun to change. The crystalline filaments were retracting, withdrawing into the shell. As they watched, a hairline crack appeared along the egg's surface, glowing with an eerie bioluminescence. "Emma," Edward said carefully, "is that thing hatching?" The crack widened, and something inside shifted. The antimatter around it began to swirl in complex patterns, responding to some signal neither pilot could detect. Whatever was emerging had been waiting dormant for exactly this moment, and they were about to discover why.